The deep vacuum of space was pierced by the shimmering curve of the Zarkothi Empire's war fleet as it slid into Sol's orbit like a shadow swallowing light. Tens of thousands of sleek, black dreadnoughts spread across the heavens, their engines humming with ruthless purpose. Command flags flickered on their bridges, signals of conquest and dominion on Earth. The first alerts sounded in sprawling command centers beneath layers of government complexes. Major cities flickered with emergency broadcasts. Millions of people stared up at the sky, their faces pale in the glow of holoscreens. Zarkothi fleet detected. They're moving into orbit faster than our models predicted, the young officer reported, voice trembling. The command room was tense. On the massive holographic star map, red icons crowded near the moon, blocking Earth's escape routes. Admiral Helen Carver gritted her teeth. Prepare the orbital defense batteries. Scramble the interceptor squadrons. This isn't a drill. But as the minutes passed, it became clear the defenses weren't enough. The Empire's initial strike was swift and brutal. Orbital platforms exploded in sudden bursts of plasma. Humanity's answer to space superiority was primitive at best. Decades-old cruisers, hastily patched together. They burned like fireflies in the night. Amid the chaos, deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, something ancient and colossal stirred. At an unmarked facility on the ocean floor, pressure sensors hummed steadily. The massive hangar bay doors, sealed tight for decades, began to grind open, echoing in the still, cold waters. Inside, the ESS Behemoth lay dormant, no longer a city-sized supercarrier, the secret jewel of humanity's last gamble. Dr. Lena Ortiz, the chief engineer, stared at the control console, sweat beading on her brow. Years of silence, secrecy, and sacrifice had led to this moment. Systems powering up, hull integrity stable, cloaking arrays engaging in 3, 2, 1. Her voice was calm but carried the weight of hope and fear. The behemoth's massive engines groaned to life, generating enough thrust to push through miles of crushing ocean. Outside the hull, bioluminescent creatures scattered as the carrier surged upward, leaving a trail of disturbed waters like a silent leviathan breaking free. Back on the surface, Admiral Carver received a transmission that would change everything. Admiral, the behemoth has launched from the Pacific sub-bay. It's operational. Carver's eyes widened. The behemoth had been a rumor for decades, dismissed by many as an urban myth or conspiracy theory. The Empire's scouts had failed to detect it, their intelligence blind to Earth's most formidable weapon. Deploy Behemoth immediately, she ordered, voice sharp. This changes everything. But the war wasn't waiting. The Empire's fleet was already massing for another assault, a full orbital bombardment aimed to cripple Earth's power grids and force a surrender. Earth's leaders debated the cost, but now, with the behemoth awake, the tides might turn. Inside the behemoth, Captain Aisha Calderon stood on the command bridge, eyes fixed on the holographic displays. A seasoned veteran, her jaw was set, determination blazing in her gaze. "We're humanity's last chance," she said softly. "Let's make it count." Suddenly, alarms blared. A power fluctuation rippled through the core systems. Ortiz's voice crackled over comms. "We've got a problem. One of the quantum reactors is fluctuating. If it fails, the launch sequence will abort." Tension tightened like a noose around the crew. Time was running out. "Engineering, you have 5 minutes. Fix it, or we don't leave the ocean." Calderon commanded. Ortiz and her team raced through narrow corridors, diagnosing the fault. The cause was unexpected, a tiny microfracture deep in the reactor's containment field, likely caused by years of inactivity and pressure shifts. Every second counted. In the command room, Calderon paced, every muscle coiled. The fate of billions rested on a fragile reactor and a crew's nerves. Come on, Ortiz muttered, fingers dancing over the control panel. A sudden spark, then a stabilizing hum. Reactor is stabilizing. We're green across the board, she reported, breathless. Good work, team, Calderon said, relief barely masking her urgency. With the behemoth fully powered and cloaked in near invisibility, it slipped past the final oceanic layers, bursting through the surface with no fanfare but a ripple on the global radar. Up in orbit, the Zarkathi fleet's scanners flickered, a faint ghost signal where none should be. They detected the behemoth too late. Impossible, hissed the Zarkathi commander. That weapon was never meant to exist. Humanity's secret supercarrier was no myth. It was real, and it was coming for them. The battle for Earth's survival had just begun.
The behemoth moved like a shadow through the void, its massive form cloaked in shimmering quantum stealth. Its engines purred with an eerie silence, betraying none of the raw power held within. Captain Asha Calderon stood on the bridge, her eyes scanning the starfield beyond the viewport, calculating the impossible, striking first at an enemy fleet that dwarfed all human forces combined. Report, she demanded. Lieutenant Ren Wei, tactical officer and longtime confidant, tapped the holodisplay. We've identified a Zarkathi supply convoy en route to the main fleet, vulnerable and lightly defended. We can intercept without detection. Calderon's lips curled into a grim smile. Good. We take the shadows and strike like lightning. Below decks, Dr. Lena Ortiz monitored the behemoth systems, nerves still frayed from the launch. Years of secrecy and isolation weighed heavily on her. She thought back to the secret meetings, the late-night debates, the sacrifices made to build this Leviathan far from prying eyes. They had poured their lives into it, humanity's silent guardian, their ghost of war. A sudden alert blinked red. Captain, incoming transmission. Unknown origin. Calderon nodded. Patch it through. Static crackled. Then a smooth, commanding voice filled the bridge. This is Admiral Krall of the Zarkathi Empire. Surrender your vessel and cease hostilities. Your defiance is futile. Calderon's gaze hardened. Admiral Krall, you mistake silence for weakness. We are no longer hiding. Earth will fight. She ended the transmission. The bridge erupted into quiet murmurs. Humanity had declared war, and the behemoth had made the first move. As the behemoth sped toward the supply convoy, the Zarkathi Empire scrambled a hunter-killer ship, sleek, deadly, and equipped with psionic tracking technology designed to detect even the slightest quantum fluctuations. In the hunter-killer's command room, Commander Vrax, a seasoned warlord, snarled at the holoscan. The humans finally revealed their ace. Destroy that carrier at all costs. Back on the behemoth, tension rippled through the crew. Radar operators spotted faint signatures. The hunter-killer was closing in fast, sensing the faint shimmer of the stealth carrier's quantum shield. Lieutenant Wei, deploy drone wings. Swarm formation Delta, Calderon ordered. Seconds later, hundreds of autonomous drones launched in perfect synchrony, like a deadly cloud of mechanical hornets. They streaked toward the hunter-killer ship, invisible until they struck with precision. Railgun bursts and micro-dash missiles. The hunter-killer's shields flared under the onslaught, but Commander Vrax remained calm. Divert all power to point defenses. Target the drone control nodes. But the behemoth's AI, a sophisticated system named Athena, anticipated this. Drones shifted formation instantly, jamming enemy sensors and overwhelming defenses. One by one, The hunter-killer's weapons were disabled. Finally, the hunter-killer exploded in a silent fireball against the backdrop of stars. Cheers erupted through the behemoth's corridors. The crew felt the first taste of victory. But the battle was only beginning. In the midst of celebrations, a secret report flashed on Calderon's screen. Unauthorized access to ship logs. A hidden hand was probing the carrier's deepest secrets. Security breach in engineering. Ortiz. Voice crackled urgently over comms. I'm tracing the intrusion. The culprit was no hacker. It was a traitor in their midst, feeding information to the enemy. Meanwhile, shadows danced on Earth's surface as governments and spy agencies raced to uncover the mole. The behemoth's existence was humanity's. That's kept secret, and now it was at risk. Calderon's personal history added weight to the crisis. Years ago, she had trusted a close friend, Commander Marcus Hawley, who had mysteriously vanished during an early skirmish. Rumors whispered that Hawley had been captured, or worse, turned. Lieutenant Wei ran a background check on all crew with access to classified systems. Calderon ordered, her voice low and urgent. Back in the Zalkathi command halls, Admiral. Kral was not idle. He studied the footage of the hunter-killer's destruction and the behemoth's stealth tactics with disbelief. How can such a primitive species wield technology like this? He demanded. An advisor answered cautiously. They've been hiding it for decades. We underestimated them. Kral's eyes narrowed. We cannot lose face again. Send the Psi commandos. They will find the traitor and break the humans. On Earth, the first signs of public reaction rippled through global media. Footage of the behemoth's assault and the hunter-killer's destruction went viral. Fear and hope tangled in the hearts of billions. We thought we were defenseless, said a news anchor, voice trembling. But Earth has a weapon that could change the fate of humanity. In the behemoth's command deck, Calderon stared at the starfield, aware that the war had moved from the cold silence of space to the shadowy corridors of trust and betrayal. We have the firepower to punch through. They're fleets, she said quietly. But first, we need to root out the ghosts in our own ship. Ortiz appeared beside her. The past has a way of catching up, Captain. We're not just fighting the Empire out there. We're fighting our own shadows. Calderon nodded, eyes steely. Then we fight on every front. Because if we fail, humanity will be lost. The behemoth slipped deeper into the black, a ghost ship with a deadly secret, and a crew haunted by the weight of war. The moon hung serene in the black void, its cratered surface glowing cold under the distant sun. But the calm was a fragile illusion. Above the lunar plains, the dark shapes of the Zalkathi cruiser squadron orbited with predatory precision, their weapons systems scanning for any sign of the elusive ESS behemoth. Captain Asha Calderon stood on the behemoth's bridge, her eyes locked on the holographic star map that pulsed with red blips, the enemy cruisers. Tactical, she commanded. What's our window? Lieutenant Renway's fingers danced over the controls. They're in a tight formation, but there's a 17-second gap between the recon sweeps. Cloak and drone wings ready. Calderon's lips curled into a determined smile. We strike hard. We strike fast. No mercy. For the first time since the behemoth's emergence, humanity would show the galaxy its true strength, not just in defense, but in calculated, overwhelming offense. But beneath the steely resolve, a deeper storm brewed. Lieutenant Wei hesitated, glancing at Calderon with a shadowed expression. Captain ... I need to speak with you. It's about Commander Hawley. Calderon's jaw tightened. The name still carried weight, a ghost from her past she had buried beneath layers of duty. Now's not the time, Lieutenant, she said firmly. We're about to engage. Wei's voice softened. Please, it's important. Calderon nodded. 5 minutes. Then you have my full attention. Wei took a deep breath. I've I've intercepted encrypted comms from a Zarkothi officer, the same one believed to have captured Holly. The transmissions ... They're referencing Hale's name and an exchange. It looks like Hale might still be alive. And worse, he could be working with the Empire. The bridge went deathly quiet. Impossible, Calderon whispered. He would never betray us. Wei's gaze was steady. The data doesn't lie, Captain. We have to prepare for the worst. Calderon nodded slowly, steeling herself. The war wasn't just out there. It was inside. Minutes later, the behemoth glided into the attack vector, cloaked and silent. Below the surface, the drone bays hissed open. Hundreds of sleek, razor-edged drones poured out like metallic swarms, their railguns charged and ready. Attack Formation Delta, Calderon ordered. Engage. The drones flashed forward in perfect synchronization, diving into the enemy formation. The Zarkothi cruisers barely had time to react before plasma bursts and railgun blasts tore through their shields. Alarms blared on the enemy ships. Contact! Hostile drones inbound. Commander Vrax's voice crackled through the comms. Focus all fire on the drones. Protect the fleet. But the drones were relentless, weaving through point defenses, disabling weapon arrays and communications with surgical precision. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the lead cruiser, sending it spinning into the void. The fleet faltered, confusion rippling through their ranks. Calderon's voice was calm but commanding. Deploy strike fighters. Cut off retreat vectors. Squadrons of agile fighters launched from the behemoth, engaging the disoriented cruisers in fierce dogfights. Human pilots, trained relentlessly, fought with a ferocity and tactical creativity that stunned the enemy. In the chaos, a familiar voice crackled over the behemoth's comm channel. It was Marcus Hawley. Captain Calderon, this is Hawley, he said, tone-clipped but unmistakably. I'm on board a cruiser. If you want to save your ship, I suggest you withdraw. Calderon's heart pounded. Hawley, why? Why betray us? Silence. Then, with cold finality, Hawley responded, it's not betrayal. It's survival. Before Calderon could respond, the comm went dead. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The behemoth's drones and fighters dismantled the Zarkothi squadron, one ship after another. The Empire's forces, once invincible, now fled in disarray. Finally, the last cruiser exploded in a fireball of twisted metal and shattered dreams. Cheers erupted throughout the behemoth. Humanity had struck its first lightning blow, not just surviving, but winning. But Calderon stood silent, haunted by the ghost of a friend now turned enemy. Prepare for the fallout, she said. The Empire won't forget this, and neither will we. Back on Earth, the victory broadcast swept across screens worldwide. People wept and cheered. Hope surged. For the first time in generations, humanity believed it could fight and win. Yet in the shadows, Earth's intelligence agencies scrambled to verify the truth about Hal. Was he a traitor or a victim? And what secrets was he hiding? Calderon returned to her quarters, exhausted. She stared at an old photo, herself, and Hawley, smiling during their academy days. The man she trusted had become a stranger. Why? She whispered. Why did it have to be you? Outside her window, stars glittered cold and distant. The war had only just begun, and the price of trust was already too high. Saturn's rings stretched wide, glittering in the pale sunlight like a scattered necklace of ice and rock. It was a perfect place to hide or to be trapped. The S-behemoth drifted silently among the swirling particles, its cloaking arrays, blending seamlessly with the shifting shadows. Captain Aisha Calderon stood rigid on the bridge, her eyes narrowing at the holographic map that displayed the incoming Zarkothi fleet closing fast. We've been baited, she said grimly. Admiral Krall has us pinned in the rings. Lieutenant Renway's fingers moved rapidly. Enemy capital ships are moving in. Their sensor grids are denser here. They're using the rings to mask their approach. Calderon's jaw clenched. We don't have room to maneuver. They want us trapped. In the observation deck below, Dr. Lena Ortiz monitored the behemoth's hull stress sensors. The rings were unforgiving. Even minor collisions with ice could tear through their armor. "Captain," Ortiz reported, "we're taking micro-impacts on the starboard thrusters. The rings are already damaging the outer hull. We can't hold this position indefinitely." Calderon nodded. "Prepare evasive maneuvers. Activate drone swarm delta for close-range defense." Outside the ship, hundreds of drones swarmed like metallic wasps, darting between ice shards, ready to intercept any incoming missiles or fighters. On the enemy flagship, Admiral Krall's cold gaze fixed on the tactical display. The behemoth is cornered. It cannot escape the rings without crossing our kill zone. Launch the Psi Commandos. Find the carrier's weak points. Psi Commandos were the Empire's elite telepathic operatives, capable of infiltrating minds and disabling systems through sheer psychic assault. Their reputation was feared, even among hardened soldiers. Back aboard the behemoth, Calderon felt the first ripple of unease. The Psi Commandos were more than just soldiers. They were hunters of the mind. If they breached the carrier's defenses, the consequences would be devastating. Suddenly, power flickered in engineering. Ortiz's voice crackled urgently. "Captain, we have an internal disturbance. Sabotage." Calderon's heart sank. "Where?" "Secondary power grid. Someone's tampering with the systems." She turned sharply. "Security teams lock down critical systems. Track that signal." The ship's corridors buzzed with emergency activity. Security personnel flooded key junctions. Calderon grabbed her comm. "Lieutenant Wei, get me a list of personnel with access to engineering." "We're on it, Captain," he replied. But the sabotage was more sophisticated than anticipated. The saboteur moved with ghost-like precision, leaving minimal traces. In the dim corridors, a shadow flickered past a bulkhead. Commander Hale's face appeared on a hidden screen in a secure comm room, eyes cold and calculating. "They don't suspect me yet," he muttered, fingers flying over a keypad. "Soon, the behemoth will fall along with their hope." Meanwhile, outside the ship, the behemoth launched a daring counterattack. Captain Calderon ordered a salvo of micromissiles targeted at the nearest enemy cruisers, exploiting their slower maneuvering in the dense rings. "Fire at will," she commanded. Explosions blossomed in the icy debris, shattering enemy vessels and scattering their formations. But the cost was high. The behemoth's hull scraped against a massive ice boulder, triggering emergency patches. "Damage report," Calderon demanded. Ortiz's voice was strained but steady. "Shields at 60%. Hull breaches in sectors 4 and 7. Repairs underway, but it's going to be tight." The behemoth twisted through the rings, barely avoiding deadly collisions. The Zarkathe fleet closed the net. Suddenly, the ship's sensors picked up a strange energy signature near a cluster of ring particles, a buried object transmitting faint signals. "Captain, there's something here," Ortiz said. "An unknown device, possibly planted by the Empire." Calderon frowned. "Deploy a drone squad for recon. I want eyes on it." The drones darted into the rings, weaving between icy debris until their cameras revealed a dark, angular shape embedded in the ice, a mining platform repurposed as a surveillance station. "Enemy listening post," Wei confirmed. "It's been here for weeks, feeding data back to Krall." Calderon bit her lip. "Destroy it. No more surprises." The drones surged forward, lasers cutting through frozen metal. The platform exploded in a shower of debris that scattered into the void. Back inside, the tension was palpable. The sabotage attempt had been contained, but not without consequences. Ortiz approached Calderon quietly. "Captain, I've been running deep scans. The sabotage was coordinated by a faction within Earth's intelligence, not just a lone traitor." Calderon's eyes narrowed. "A faction? So this war is being fought on two fronts against the Empire and our own divisions." "Exactly," Ortiz said. "We need to find these conspirators before they do more damage." Calderon nodded grimly. "Then let's prepare for their next move. The behemoth isn't just fighting for survival. We're fighting for humanity's future." As the Zarkothi fleet tightened its grip, the behemoth slipped deeper into the shadows of Saturn's rings, fighting a battle where trust was as fragile as the ice surrounding them. The hum of the ESS Behemoth's engines was a constant reminder that the colossal warship was alive, a steel leviathan cutting through the cold emptiness of space. But beneath that mechanical heartbeat, the crew felt something more insidious, an undercurrent of mistrust and suspicion that gnawed at them from within. Captain Asha Calderon sat alone in her quarters, staring at the flickering hollow portrait of Commander Marcus Holly. The man once loyal, now a shadow looming over their mission. A traitor or a pawn? She didn't know anymore. But the damage was done. Her comm beeped softly. "Captain, Lieutenant Wei requesting your presence in tactical." Calderon stood, masking her exhaustion with steel. "On my way." Lieutenant Ren Wei waited for her in the dimly lit tactical chamber, eyes sharp, fingers poised above the holo controls. "We intercepted new encrypted transmissions," he said as Calderon entered. "They're from Hal coming from within." "The Zarkothi fleet," Calderon frowned. "He's communicating with Kral. What's he saying?" Wei tapped rapidly. "Plans, locations. They're coordinating a strike against our supply lines and more. Hale's playing a bigger role than we thought." Calderon's voice was low but fierce. "We need to find him before he sabotages everything." Meanwhile, deep in the ship's engineering section, Dr. Lena Ortiz was working with the security team to trace the origins of the sabotage attempts. Every system was scrutinized, every access log cross-checked. But the saboteur was careful, no obvious fingerprints. Ortiz leaned close to a console, eyes narrowing. "Captain, someone has been masking their presence in the system, rerouting power and communications through hidden backdoors." "Can you isolate them?" Calderon asked, stepping beside her. Ortiz nodded slowly. "I'm close. Whoever it is knows the ship's systems intimately. They might even have clearance." Calderon's heart sank. "We're hunting a ghost." Tensions escalated in the crew quarters. Whispers and sideways glances spread like wildfire. Security. Chief Morgan Hall confronted a group of engineers. "If you know anything about this sabotage, now's the time to speak." One young technician stepped forward hesitantly. "I saw Commander Holly near the power grid access before the last outage. He was acting strange." Hall's eyes hardened. "That confirms it. We're dealing with a high-level mole." The news spread fast. The crew's morale wavered, trust fracturing like cracked glass. On the bridge, Calderon made a decision. Full lockdown on all critical systems. No one moves without clearance. She ordered, "We'll conduct a ship-wide sweep. And Wei, get me a list of crew with unexplained absences." Wei's expression was grim. Already working on it, but the mole was not idle. In a concealed compartment, Commander Holly adjusted. A small device, a neural scrambler designed to disable key systems remotely. His eyes flickered with conflicted emotion. "They don't understand," he muttered. "This war isn't theirs alone. The Empire's vision is the only path to survival." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. Power flickered, lights dimmed, and communications jammed. Sabotage. "They've hit the main reactors." Ortiz's voice came over the comm, tense and urgent. Calderon raced to the engineering deck. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and engineers scrambled to contain the chaos. "We have 30 minutes before our reactor meltdown," Ortiz announced grimly. "If we don't stabilize the core, the behemoth will be lost." Calderon looked at the crew's weary faces. "We're not losing this ship. Not while humanity depends on it." Meanwhile, Lieutenant Wee traced a digital footprint deep into the ship's navigation systems. "There," he said, eyes wide. "Unauthorized. Override initiated from a SecureCom node." Security teams converged, locking down corridors and scanning for the infiltrator. Calderon's voice crackled over comms. "Hale, this is Calderon. We know what you're doing. Surrender now, and you'll have a chance to explain." Silence. Then, a cold reply. "Captain, I do what's necessary to save us all." "You're blinded by loyalty to a dying world." The ship shuddered as systems stabilized, but the scars remained. The crew's unity was shattered. In the aftermath, Calderon gathered her senior officers. "This war is more than firepower and tactics," she said solemnly. "It's a battle for our very souls. We must root out the darkness within before it consumes us." Ortiz nodded. "We're stronger than the Empire, but only if we stand together." Way added, "And we will find Holly, whatever it takes." Calderon's eyes burned with resolve. "Then let's make sure this ship, this crew, becomes the symbol of humanity's resilience." The ESS Behemoth sailed on. Battered but unbroken, its greatest enemy no longer just the Empire, but the fractures threatening to tear humanity apart from within. The corridors of the ES Behemoth had never felt so cold. Every step echoed with suspicion. The once tight-knit crew moved cautiously, eyes darting down hallways, mistrust lingering like a poison in the recycled air. Captain Asha Calderon paced the command deck, the weight of command heavier than ever. The hunt for Marcus, Hale, the ghost who would become their most dangerous enemy, had begun in earnest. "Lieutenant Wei," she said, "status on Holly?" Wei's face was grim as he studied the holomap. "Last known location, engineering sector Delta. But he's good. He's been slipping through our nets like a shadow." Calderon nodded. "We can't let him sabotage the behemoth from the inside. I want teams moving through every compartment. No blind spots." In engineering, the atmosphere was tense and electric. The saboteur's fingerprints were everywhere. Small disruptions, critical system overrides, but finding the man responsible was like chasing a phantom. Dr. Lena Ortiz was coordinating with security teams, her sharp mind racing through the data. "Captain," she called over the comm, "we found a pattern." Hale's movements coincide with recent system failures and power reroutes. He's working a step ahead. Calderon's voice was steady. "Patch me into your feed." On the screen, Ortiz highlighted schematics of the ship's core systems. "He's targeting the quantum drive," Ortiz explained. "If that goes down, we lose mobility and become sitting ducks." Elsewhere, Hale moved through the ship's shadowed maintenance tunnels, his expression a mask of conflicted determination. "This is bigger than you or me," he muttered, fingers steady as he prepared the final sequence on a neural disruptor. He paused, listening to the hum of the ship. Somewhere, Calderon was hunting him. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. 4. HUMANIT wire for control. Back on the bridge, Calderon's comm crackled again. "Captain, security teams have found traces of unauthorized access near the lower engineering bay," Wei reported. "But Holly wasn't there. Someone else ... or a trap." Calderon's jaw tightened. "Keep the sweep tight." He's using the ship's layout to his advantage. Suddenly, the behemoth jolted violently. "Impact on the port side," shouted a crew member. Explosive charge detonated near the quantum drive conduit. Alarms blared as the ship's quantum engine sputtered. "Damage report," Calderon demanded. Ortiz's voice was strained. Severe damage to the conduit. We're losing drive efficiency. If we don't stabilize it within 20 minutes, we'll be stranded. Calderon's mind raced. Is this sabotage or an attack? Wei shook his head. Sabotage from within. Hale or his accomplices. Emergency teams flooded the engineering decks, working frantically to patch the ruptured conduits. Ortiz coordinated repairs, her hands steady despite the chaos. Captain, she said over the com, we need to reroute power through auxiliary systems. But the reroute protocols have been tampered with. Calderon's voice hardened. Then secure the protocols. No more surprises. In a secure com room, Hale contacted Admiral Krall. The behemoth is weakened, Hale reported. The ship will fall silent soon. Krall's cold laugh echoed through the channel. Excellent. Once disabled, the carrier is ours. But Calderon is strong, Hale warned. She will fight to the last. Krall's response was simple. Then she will fall with the rest. Back on the behemoth, Calderon gathered her senior officers. We're not just fighting the Empire's fleet out there, she said grimly. We're fighting betrayal within these walls. Wei added, our systems are compromised. We have to isolate Hale and any collaborators. Ortiz nodded. And fast, before more damage. Calderon's eyes burned. Prepare for lockdown. Every sector will be sealed and scanned. No one moves without clearance. As teams sealed compartments and scanned for anomalies, Calderon reflected on the war. That had become as much about trust as survival. She remembered the early days with Hale, his optimism, their shared dreams. Now those memories cut like shards of glass. We will find you, Marcus, she whispered into the com, and end this. Deep in the ship's bowels, the hunt closed. Security teams converged on a maintenance shaft where sensors detected faint heat signatures. A sudden burst of static filled the com channels. Then silence. The maintenance shaft was claustrophobic and dark, its metal walls echoing with every hurried footstep. Security teams moved methodically, their pulse rifles trained on every shadow. The hunt for Marcus Hale had brought them to the precipice of disaster and revelation. Captain Aisha Calderon's com buzzed urgently. Lieutenant Wei, status update. Have you located the saboteur? Wei's voice was tense, but steady. We're closing in. Thermal scans indicate a moving target. Near the secondary engineering bay. Calderon's heart pounded. Contain the area. No one leaves. Inside the shaft, Commander Hale crouched in the shadows, neural disruptor in hand. His breath was steady, but his mind raced with doubt and conviction in equal measure. This is the only way, he muttered, to save humanity from destruction, even if it means destroying the behemoth. Suddenly, floodlights snapped on, blinding him. Freeze! A security officer barked, weapon raised. Hale's fingers twitched, preparing to fire the disruptor. But before he could act, a voice rang out calm, resolute. Marcus, it's over. You don't have to do this. Calderon stepped forward, eyes locked on her former friend. Hale's expression twisted, half anger, half sorrow. You don't understand, Aisha. This war. It's bigger than any one ship or one world. Calderon's voice softened. Help us stop it, Marcus. Don't let the Empire win by breaking us from within. Behind the tension of their confrontation, emotions churned friendship, betrayal, hope, despair. Hale hesitated, the weight of his actions crashing down. They made me choose, Captain. Survival at any cost. Calderon shook her head. There's always a choice, and we choose to fight together. Suddenly, a harsh alarm blared throughout the ship. Alert! Quantum drive integrity failing. Ortiz's voice came over the comm. Critical systems compromised. Calderon's gaze snapped to the comm panel. What now? Wei's face appeared on the bridge monitor, grim. Another sabotage attempt, Captain. Someone's overriding the failsafes. Calderon's eyes narrowed. It's not just Holly. There's a second saboteur. In the ship's security hub. Dr. Ortiz pored over system logs. Captain, the secondary override originated from a Securicom node in command. Calderon's blood ran cold. Someone here on the bridge is helping the enemy. Wei's voice trembled slightly. It has to be ... Before he could finish, the doors to the command deck hissed open. Standing there was Commander Dax, Calderon's trusted second-in-command. His eyes were cold, unreadable. Dax? Calderon's voice was a whisper. He smiled thinly. You didn't really think I'd let you have all the fun, did you? Chaos erupted. Dax drew a plasma pistol and fired, sending the nearest officer sprawling. Security! Lock down the bridge! Calderon shouted, diving behind a console. Dax advanced, weapon raised. The Empire promised me power. I'm just making sure we get our share. Wei scrambled to his feet, drawing his sidearm. You're a traitor. Dax laughed. A survivor. The behemoth shuddered as the quantum drive faltered again, sparks flying from exposed conduits. Ortiz's voice cut through the chaos. We're losing propulsion. If this continues, we'll be adrift in enemy space. Calderon's mind raced. She had to act fast. Dax, stand down, she commanded, voice steel. He hesitated, eyes flickering with doubt. Think of the crew, she said. This isn't the way. For a moment, it seemed he might listen. But then, with a sudden roar, Dax lunged forward. Wei fired, hitting him in the shoulder. Dax stumbled but kept advancing. Calderon leapt up, tackling him to the floor. They grappled fiercely. The fate of the behemoth balanced on a knife's edge. Outside, security teams burst in, restraining Dax. Holly, still nearby, watched silently. Calderon stood, breathing hard. Both of you, she said, you've almost destroyed everything we've built. Hale's eyes met hers, a spark of regret. Maybe it's time we rebuild on stronger foundations. Calderon nodded slowly. Then help us. In the aftermath, repairs began in earnest. Ortiz led the engineering teams, working miracles to stabilize the quantum drive. Calderon convened a council of trusted officers. We faced enemies without and within, she said. But our strength is our unity. We will not fall. Hale, now detained but cooperating, added quietly, trust is fragile. But it's worth fighting for. The behemoth's quantum drive hummed back to life, steady and strong. Above, the stars awaited vast, indifferent, but humanity was ready. Calderon gazed out at the infinite blackness, knowing the next battle was coming. But this time, they would face it together. The S-behemoth glided through the shadowed expanse beyond Saturn's rings, a battered but unbroken fortress against the dark. Inside, the air was thick with a quiet determination. The crew had survived betrayal, sabotage, and despair. Now, only one enemy remained, the Empire. Captain Asisha Calderon stood on the bridge, eyes fixed on the glowing tactical display. The Zarkathi fleet had regrouped beyond sensor range, waiting for their moment to strike. But this time, the behemoth would be ready. Status report, Calderon commanded. Lieutenant Ren Wei's fingers danced over the controls. Shields at full strength, quantum drive stabilized, drone swarms ready. Dr. Lena Ortiz monitored engineering from her station. Reactor core steady. Damage control teams have restored critical systems. Calderon nodded. Good. Prepare to engage. Across the bridge, the crew's faces reflected the same resolve. They had been tested and found unyielding. The tactical map pulsed as a new blip appeared on the sensors. The Empire's fleet, emerging from the darkness in full force. Admiral Krall's flagship loomed large, its intimidating silhouette cutting through the void. Ready all weapons, Calderon ordered. This is humanity's fight. Outside, the stars erupted with deadly light. The behemoth's drone swarm surged forward like a metallic storm, weaving through Zarkathi missile salvos, intercepting every threat with precision. The carrier's pulse cannons roared, tearing into enemy cruisers. On the command deck, Calderon's voice was steady but fierce. Hold the line. We've come too far to fall now. Admiral Krall's voice crackled over comes cold and scornful. Earth's fragile hope ends here. Surrender, and your suffering will be brief. Calderon's reply was unwavering. We surrender nothing. This is our home. The battle intensified. Zarkathi fighters swarmed the behemoth, but the crew's tactical brilliance and advanced Earth technology turned the tide. Drones swarmed like relentless swarms of wasps, protecting the ship from boarding attempts. Inside the chaos, Calderon spotted a critical opening. Way, target the enemy flagship's aft thrusters. We need to cripple their maneuverability. Way's fingers moved quickly. Target locked. Firing now. The behemoth missile struck true, exploding in a fiery bloom that rocked the Zarkathi flagship. Krall's rage was palpable. Destroy that carrier. But the behemoth was a fortress of ingenuity and spirit. Shields held. Weapons fired. The Empire's assault faltered. Back on the bridge, Calderon glanced at the detained Commander Hall. He helped us find the saboteur, Ortiz said softly. Calderon nodded. Even in darkness, light can be found. As the battle raged, Calderon gave the order that would seal their fate. Prepare the quantum rift generator. If we can open a rift behind the enemy fleet, we can trap them. Way's eyes widened. It's risky, untested in combat. Calderon's gaze was firm. We don't have a choice. Moments later, the behemoth charged the rift generator. The space around them warped and twisted, light bending in impossible ways. With a roar, the quantum rift tore open, swallowing the Zarkathi fleet's rear guard in a vortex of energy. Chaos rippled through the enemy lines as their formations collapsed. Admiral Krall's flagship veered wildly, caught in the rift's pull. Calderon saw her chance. Fire all weapons. Target the flagship. A coordinated salvo struck, breaching the enemy hull. The Empire's command center erupted in flames. The battle ended with the behemoth victorious, battered but undefeated. The crew cheered, relief and pride shining bright. In the quiet after, Calderon addressed her crew. This victory is more than firepower. It's the strength of our unity. The courage to face betrayal, to overcome fear, and to stand for humanity's future. The stars outside glittered like distant promises. The war was far from over, but the behemoth had changed the game.